If you'd like to talk about your own Bigfoot encounter, or if you're looking for help from a Bigfoot investigator in your area, email me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. No Sasquatch were harmed in the recording of this podcast. This is Bigfoot Crossroads. My name's Matt, and 2022 has left us. 2023 has arrived, and I'm looking forward to the new year of Bigfoot Crossroads. I had a blast in 2022. I got to talk to some amazing people, hear some amazing encounters. Hopefully you join me along the way. If this is the first time listening, welcome. I hope you'll enjoy your stay. I wanted to share with all the listeners the top 5 episodes of 2022. Starting in at number 5. Episode number 35, Bigfoot in the Park. This was a special episode for me. I was joined by my good friend Wolfgang, and we discussed the 20th anniversary of my first sighting of a Bigfoot creature. It happened in Sulphur, Oklahoma. It was completely unexpected, although I was out there looking for Bigfoot, and it, as you know, changed my life forever. I see these bright, shining eyes looking straight forward at me. My mind is trying to process what I'm looking at. Like, is that a deer? Is that an owl? What am I looking at here? And I focus in on the eyes and see that surrounding the eyes is a face, part of a face. There's a tree limb, like a small tree limb, that's kind of cutting off the bottom part of the face, just below the mouth. I don't see the chin, in other words. And there's another tree limb going across the top of the head, so I can't see the very top of the head. But I'm seeing everything in between just perfectly clear. I mean, I still see it in my head. I can still remember that night in my head like it just happened yesterday. I still see the thing in my mind, how it looked through the night vision scope, the details of the face, everything. It's imprinted on my mind forever. I think that happens with most Bigfoot witnesses. I think it even happens with people who don't actually see a Bigfoot, but just encounter one or believe they've encountered one. It's something that stays with you forever. It's truly a life-changing event, in some cases a traumatic event. A lot of the witnesses that I've talked to show clear signs of PTSD and are still coping with their encounters decades after they actually had them. Some allow themselves to be overcome with it, overcome with the fear, the anxiety of possibly encountering one again. Hunters have been known to set down their guns and never go back into the woods after encountering one of these creatures. But are they something to truly be afraid of? You hear the horror stories, people love to hear it. They like to be scared and frightened, but you also hear stories of these things being completely docile and very timid in their behavior. They truly are a mystery. What they are, should we be afraid of them? I think yes, we should be afraid of everything to some degree. Maybe not afraid, but at least respect the capabilities and not put our own selves in harm's way. And that holds true with everything in life, not just these creatures. Coming in at number 4, episode 38, Sasquatch in the Desert. A man named Ryan shared his encounter from Arizona whenever he was out camping and had his campsite surrounded by something repetitively tapping on trees, wood knocking. You know, we've heard it time and time again.
And then I just hear this, ta, 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 ta. I realized that that's not way down creek. That's that's closer to where our tent is. It's in the trees, like facing us in the dark. I was like, no way. And the vibe totally changed, almost like impending doom, danger. All around it, and the trees around it, there's movement. It stops tapping for a second. It does this pattern. Like it's like do da do do da da da, and then it goes quiet. Way down, I heard the same pattern returned. Both my wife and I went, whoa. I looked back at my wife and I got a bad feeling. And somebody told me, do not leave her. Do not go away from her. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this gigantic tree breaks. Just the level of fear you fear when you don't think it's real, or there's this, people hoaxing and stuff, and you kind of doubt it, and you kind of think, no, this is probably not reality. And when it happens, it just makes it all the more scarier.
He was quite frightened at the idea of something intelligent, something not your typical animal, being so brazen to approach a camp at night, a campfire. He could hear it moving around. He knew it was large. He could hear its breathing. It got so close. Shook him up quite a bit. What I found fascinating, though, was his story that he later told from his own home whenever he possibly encountered a skinwalker in his own backyard. A terrifying story for sure. Number 3, episode 33, Standoff with a Sasquatch. A lot of the listeners will remember this one. Mike had one of the most amazing encounters, probably still to this day, the most amazing witness I have ever talked to. While he was hunting, he saw a Bigfoot, and it approached his tree and basically had him treed for a good part of 30 minutes. He had the thing in his scope. He could have shot it. He chose not to.
At this point, I'm still confused. I'm a little rattled. I'm almost to the point to where I'm like, is somebody playing a trick on me? And I notice it moved. So I put the scope back on him. That's when I got scared. He kind of turned his face a little bit, and he did not have a snout like a bear or a dog or anything. I just seen the side of his face. I seen one of his eyes, solid black, like a shark's eyes. That's when I panicked. And the sheer size of this thing, I got a real good chance to look at it, man, for a while. The sun's going to go down, and I'm going to be in the pitch black with whatever this is. And still to this day, I don't know why I did it. I just yelled. And when I did that, it was all in one motion. This thing put its hands on the ground and just popped up on its feet. And I'm like, oh God. That's when I said, I'm going to die. I'm going to die here today.
It was a very terrifying encounter for him. One of the truly scary things about his encounter was this creature's behavior and how it didn't seem the slightest bit afraid of him or of being seen. And then on his way out of the area, he realized that there was a second one following him. It still shakes him up to this day. I've remained in contact with him. I had him on the show a second time with some experiences he had again while hunting. A lot of people were critical of him whenever he came back on the show for firing his weapon blindly, so to speak. But I have to ask you to take a moment to put yourself in his position, knowing what he had been through before. What would you do in that situation? I think fear could get the better of all of us at some point. At number 2, episode 34, It Looked Like a Monster. Chris from New Jersey shared his terrifying childhood encounter with something horrific. Imagine being a child, not having any clue these things exist, not even knowing what a Bigfoot is, and then finding yourself staring face to face with one, towering over you. The thing was holding a dog that had been ripped in half.
I literally thought I was looking at a monster, and it was just standing there. It's holding like half of a dog that was obviously ripped in half. And I remember I looked at its face for about 0.5 seconds, and I looked like immediately down. Like its face was so scary to me. I couldn't even last like 1 second looking at its face. I just looked completely down. And do I still have those nightmares and stuff? Yeah, I do. I'll be in a dream and like, I don't see it, but I know it's a Bigfoot, and like I know it's coming for me, and like I literally will go to a corner and be so scared, and like I feel it coming towards me, and then I get this really, really weird feeling, and I just wake up, and it's like I still have that same dream like every few months to this day. Dude, I thought it was gonna come through the woods and just kill. Like I thought it was just gonna come right out and rip me in half. Like that's what I thought, and I'm like I'm dead. Like I'm dead.
Chris had an amazing story. The details, everything that has stuck with him over the years, the emotions, and he's still going out there and facing those fears and trying to have more encounters with these things. I really enjoyed having him on as a guest. I really enjoyed his story. Definitely check it out if you haven't listened to it already. Coming in at number 1. Episode 44, Bigfoot Hit by Car. Man, oh man, David from Florida joined me to tell me his story about the time he hit a Bigfoot with his car.
Something goes across the front of my car. When this thing went across my hood, you could see the hair. The muscles were so defined. It was probably in the middle 5-6 foot range, but it was just rock solid. I pulled my car over immediately. I mean, it could have been more than 10 seconds for me to pull my car over. I was kind of expecting to see a person on the side of the road, but there was nothing there. Whatever this was, it obviously got back up and cleared a fence. It had to got behind that tree, which is probably 100 feet out in that pasture. This is what really scared me. I made a phone call to Florida Highway Patrol. There's a lady answered the phone, told her what had happened. I said, I think I hit somebody. I think I hit them, or there was a big growl. They had been injured. And she said, are you, where are you? I said, well, I'm back in my car. She asked, are you armed? I said, no, I'm not armed. She said, okay, are your doors locked? I said, yes, my doors are locked. She said, I don't want you to get out of your car again. And she said, I receive multiple calls every month in this general area of sightings of things being seen running across the road. I can't tell you what you saw, but it's not a person.
I had never heard this story before. I'm not sure many people had. I believe this was the first time he had gone on a podcast and shared it. An amazingly detailed encounter. He called the highway patrol afterwards. He thought he had hit a person possibly. He was trying to wrap his mind around what he had seen, what had happened exactly. And whenever he was talking to the dispatcher, they basically told him things being seen by motorists. They received lots of calls from this area. Don't get out of your car, and don't worry, you didn't hit a person. Basically confirming that these things exist and that they were aware of them existing in that area. Later on, he would have another sighting, another road crossing sighting, except this time a fellow motorist would also see the thing. Another amazing sighting report from Florida. I really enjoyed that episode, and it doesn't surprise me at all that you find it at the number 1 spot of all my episodes of 2022. For years, I've also had a YouTube channel where I've been putting out Bigfoot-related content. It's got an amazing subscriber base. If you're not a subscriber, you should be. There's even a members area you can join for a small fee where you'll have access to years and years and years of other Bigfoot content that I've done previously with a different show. Check it out. I am making it a point in this coming year to be adding more exclusive content and doing more things with the members area besides just the archive section, which has something like 150 episodes that you can't get anywhere else. But something that's interesting to me is the top 5 on YouTube is not the same as the top 5 for the podcast community. So I thought I would go over those top 5 as well. That's based on the YouTube stats. Number 5, episode 23, Monster 911 lives up to its name. Lance Hightower of the Monster 911 podcast joined me to talk about his encounters growing up and some of the stories he's heard.
And I looked deeper and I could see this silhouette of this figure. And I could make the outline that there was an upright figure in the trees. It was very dark, but it was enough that I could see this silhouette. I could see the space between the arms and the body. and I could just, I couldn't make out any identifiable features, and there was no swaying, there was no sound, there was no smell, but it was just that feeling like, I got to get out of here. Something's not right. So I backed my way out slowly, still keeping my eye. I was backing out of the rows of my dad wanted me to put some hay on the strawberries, and I backed out about maybe 60 yards, and then I got on my bike and I pedaled as fast as I could, and then went to the house and I got inside and I just stayed there.
Really had fun with this one. Lance is a great guy and a fellow Oklahoman, and he has some of the most amazing, not just Bigfoot stories, but dogman encounters. Dogman is something that I'm fascinated by. I've fortunately never had an encounter with one, but it may have been watching me at some point and I just didn't know it. Apparently these things are everywhere, and I had no idea there were so many encounters with these things, even in my own state of Oklahoma. Number 4 on the YouTube channel was, again, episode 34, It Looked Like a Monster. Chris's story from New Jersey as a child, seeing the terrifying looking Bigfoot holding a dog ripped in half, captivated audiences on YouTube as well, and it found its way on the list of the top 5. At spot number 3, episode 15, Bigfoot Bodies.
And he was telling of a story in East Texas of a lady driving down this rural road. He didn't tell me exactly what road it was, but a lady was driving down a rural road and struck a Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot head and shoulders went through the windshield. And I believe she called like the local law enforcement. They came out, and then like some black vans showed up, and they just pulled the Bigfoot away and then took off, and no one knows what happened to the lady, where she's at, or if she's okay. So he was telling me this story, and I was fascinated by it, but we weren't able to find who the person was, where it was at, but he had heard the story from another person.
My man, Robert Dominguez of the Bigfoot Club podcast joins me. We talk about, what does Bigfoot do with their dead? Do they bury them? Do they eat them? Do they just vanish into thin air? There's lots of stories about Bigfoot being shot and killed or hit by cars and killed, and Bigfoot burial sites. If you do enough digging, they're out there, more than you'd realize. Some of the stories are famous, some of the stories are not so famous. But if these things are out there and they are dying, their bones and their bodies have to be somewhere. At number 2, episode 46, Bigfoot terrorizes young brothers.
There was this thing in the tree. It was about 15 feet up. And when it started to stand up, that branch that it was on broke and it fell straight to the ground within 5 feet of its legs, barely bent on impact, like you or I stepping off a curb. It kind of put me in a panic mode. We all 3 turned around and took off back towards a mobile home. Outside our back porch, there was this old freezer chest. It was like an old ice cream chest, and it was like a see-through glass top. It was like an old weathered headlight, the cover where it's all hazed over just from being outside and just worn and weathered. It just felt like the only place to put some kind of barrier between it and us. And my brother shut the door. He put his hands over my mouth. I'm freaking out, but he put his hands over my mouth and kept me quiet. And this thing walked up to the freezer chest. That was the real scary part, because we could see the silhouette of it just right over the top of us, looking in at us.
Oh man, what an emotional episode. This one was a recent one. Jimmy Barr joined me to talk about his absolutely terrifying encounter with Bigfoot whenever he was a young kid with his brothers. It was featured on the television show These Woods Are Haunted, where apparently the show decided to change a few of the details, but Jimmy held nothing back. He told us exactly how it happened, and man, it was a hard one to sit through. My hat's off to Jimmy for coming on and being brave enough to share his story with everybody. And the guy is a really good guy. He is out there wanting to help others. He's wanting to face this fear and help himself get over this traumatic event. I sincerely thank Jimmy for coming on and sharing his story with me. And the number one episode of 2022 for the YouTube channel, episode 16, Bigfoot Scares Hunter in Creepy Encounter. And man, this one was creepy.
About 30 yards away, something got up. I literally froze in my tracks and I could not move. And it took 5 steps in behind me onto the game trail. I mean, it walked just like you and me. Now I'm in the pitch dark. I'm in black. Like I cannot see anything. I want people to understand how scary this was. And I'm thinking to myself, this is it. This is it, man. This thing's going to come down this trail and it's going to get me and they're never going to find me again. I mean, I really thought I was going to die.
Scott was out hunting early morning, still dark out, pitch black darkness in the woods, and something big is standing off on the trail with him. This thing did not act right. It acted like a predator. He was terrified. It was terrifying to listen to. He's still shaken up about it. It almost kept him out of the woods forever. This is one of those instances where a hunter had a very difficult time getting back out into the woods after his encounter. Later on, he would have another intense encounter where one screamed at him from close range, freezing him in his steps, shaking his entire body. Another just horrendous encounter that nobody would want to go through, but an amazing story to listen to. And that's why it found itself at number 1 on the YouTube channel. If you are not a subscriber to the YouTube channel, go to YouTube right now. Type in Bigfoot Crossroads and hit that subscribe button. Check out the members area. Like I said, a huge archive of past Bigfoot content. Also, be sure to check out the website, bigfootcrossroads.com. You can find links to social media, report a sighting, all my contact info, and past episodes. You can even find the hotline. If you don't want to send me an email or file a report, call me. Leave a voicemail, 888-505-2327. That's 888-505-BFCR. And of course, you can email me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at Bigfoot Crossroads and on Twitter at BF Crossroads. Wherever you hang out on the internet, I'm probably there, and I'd love for you to follow me. Also, be sure to check out my homeboy Robert over at the Bigfoot Club. The Bigfoot Club podcast, you can find him everywhere on social media with Bigfoot Club 1. That's Bigfoot Club and the number 1. Him and his nephew Steven, another good friend of mine, do a great job. Have a great show. It's a fun time always. I'm on there a lot, or at least I try to be. I like to have him on a lot. He's my best friend, and he's a genius whenever it comes to Bigfoot and the paranormal. Also, check out my new friends in the UFO community, Calling All Beans with DJ, Nathan, and Deb. I've been over there. I plan on going over there more in the future, being on there at some point as a guest, sitting in as a co-host maybe. And I'd like to bring them on over here sometimes. Recently I had a guest on the show, Raul Hilliard from New Mexico, who had some great Bigfoot stories, but he also had a really amazing UFO encounter. And I really enjoyed talking to him about it. A lot of my guests have talked about things outside of Bigfoot that they've experienced. And if you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you know that I'm into everything, not just Bigfoot. I grew up in a haunted house. I've always been fascinated with the paranormal and the unexplained, no matter what it was. And I'd really like to get more into those subjects from time to time. If that's something you think you would be interested in hearing, leave a comment. Let me know about it. I'd also like to say a special thanks to Nance over at Buckeye Bigfoot on YouTube. She sent all her little deranged elves over to wish me a Merry Squatchmas, and I sincerely appreciate it. If you're one of the Buckeye Bigfoot bunch, thank you so much. I hope you'll stick around, subscribe to the channel, check me out. And if you've had your own Bigfoot encounter you'd like to share on Bigfoot Crossroads, email me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com or message me on Facebook. And until next time, remember, there's something in the woods.